Hello and welcome to the Battalion Marching Orders. This week we're joined by the Troops Trio podcast with Matthew Sookram, Bob Coles, and Ranjan Rupal. Welcome, gents.
Hey, Richard. Nice to see you.
You too.
Thanks for having us, Rich.
Obviously, a brand new podcast with the troops, and what's it all about?
Well, essentially, it's a sort of a look at the battalion, if you can imagine, not just on the ice, but from 10,000 feet. It's sort of look at everything that's happening in the organization, whether it's, who's on the injured list, how the team's doing on the ice, things they're doing in the community. So it's really a sense of everything they're involved with in terms of, the hockey team, but the hockey organization as well. And to that end, we'll be out in the community doing the podcast, going out to location. It's a chance for fans to check out, ask questions, meet their favorite player, all that sort of stuff. But it's really a wider view of the organization.
Yeah, it was really neat. We got to do an episode right from the concourse of the Beauart Longyear Memorial Gardens during Fan Fest, and we had a live audience there, and they put us on the PA system so people could hear us throughout the building. So that was pretty neat. Working in all those years in radio, you don't hear the feedback as you're doing the show, right? So that was pretty neat to hear the show happening as people were walking around. And like Bob said, taking the podcast into the community. We are sponsored by some great community partners: City of North Bay, the Fox and Fiddle, the Moose, the clubhouse at Gateway Golf, the Boat North Bay, and we are planning to be at all these locations. So lots of live episodes. Where the idea for that is that people can come and interact with us. Everyone is able to interact with us on socials, but during these live episodes, they will actually be able to interact with us while the show is happening in person, which I think is pretty neat.
I think that there's a thirst for battalion info, and we are in an age where people get their news and information from non-traditional sources. Certainly sports is that way, and the sports media landscape is evolving extremely rapidly. And I think the battalion taking an initiative on this kind of an in-house production, although I'm not an in-house employee of the battalion, nor any of the other two gentlemen, but it's bringing that passion and information to the fans, and they'll know where to go to get it, and in time they'll become very familiar with this motley collection of media people that pretend that they know what they're talking about, but because they have a mic, they get to say what they think that is going on about the battalion. And I think that that the feedback has been very good so far, and we're just sort of learning. We're just three guys, and behind the camera, what you can't see is where all the hard work is, and we're just getting going, and hopefully, we have episodes on a weekly basis that will get better. What do they say? They always say you got to get 1% better every game. It's kind of like the playoffs. That's what we're hoping for.
Right on.
Yeah, behind the scenes for sure, right? We've got producer Gerald that hits all the right buttons, and AJ the DJ that really is our hype man. He's our number one fan, but he's also an integral part of the show too. So got to shout out those guys for sure.
And those guys, they're intricately involved on game nights. All the video that comes on the screen, the technical part of enjoying the experience. If you're a fan at a battalion home game, Gerald just runs it from a board up at the Beauart Longyear Memorial Gardens, and of course AJ, he's the music guy. He announces stuff as well there, but they're both intricately involved in this podcast.
I know you mentioned, you talked about sort of giving your own opinions and whatnot, but you're perched up there in the media box at every game. You're watching the players, you're doing the interviews, you're talking to the players, the staff, the coaches, the team. So you really are a wealth of knowledge, and certainly the fans are craving that, right?
Well, I think that they are craving it. So, traditional media outlets would be the newspaper and the radio and television. And increasingly, people are getting their news and information from this format, watching a podcast format. And some people don't even subscribe to the traditional media anymore. And so we have to be, even though the gentlemen in this forum here right now have earned an income and put food on their table in that traditional format. 20 years from now, who knows what it's going to look like? And I think that the young people, like the fans of tomorrow for this hockey team, are digesting their media content, their sports content in untraditional ways, and that's what we're trying to do. So whether it's the news and views coming from the coach or certain players, or the general manager or the team president, I think as the three of us know what the fans want to ask them, because we do hear it 6 days of the week when it's not game day. And so we bring that, we're going to bring that to the broadcast and ask those kind of questions that sometimes don't get asked in the post-game scrum, for example, or you just, as a fan, don't really have access to a way to ask those questions. And I think that one of the things that Matt has been and AJ have been working on is to try to get fan questions coming through the podcast so that we can then take those questions and direct it to our guest.
Yeah, and for anyone listening to this that wants to send us questions, you can hit us up at troopstrio@battalionhockey.com, or just send a question to any of the battalion social media channels, and that will get filtered through to us. And you're right about fans craving this. I mean, there's no other event or venue in North Bay or the surrounding area that gets 3,000 people twice a week out to it for, what is it, 8 months of the year that hockey season goes on. So I mean, and that's a full credit to the coaching staff, the front office staff, the ownership. Ever since COVID, this has been one of the best teams in the OHL, and that's not hyperbole. You look at the stats; they have one of the best regular season records since COVID. They have one of the best playoff records since COVID. They have I think the third most drafted players into the NHL since COVID. So, I mean, this team has invested in itself, and it's invested in the community, and the community wants to invest back in it. So it really is a nice cycle of what's going on right now with the North Bay Battalion.
And they're really reaching out to the community through this podcast and through their recruitment of young people to get them to come to the games. I know at the Fan Fest, for example, they had all the young hockey players come out and introduce before the battalion players were, and that was quite an atmosphere. The Fan Fest was started last year. It was quite popular, but it really took another level. I think we all agree this year it was quite the happening. We were set up inside, as Matt said, and so I think they're really doing a lot of community outreach with Adam Dennis and Steve Battanti, who's sort of our boss on this. Really getting out in the community, trying to reach people with everything they're doing. And it's going to be great to actually talk to players. I think sometimes all we talk to players is with, sort of 2 minutes after a game, or maybe a couple of questions at the weekly scrum. But the players will be joining us on our podcast episodes, and we'll be able to spend 10 minutes with a player about their goals and their motivation and who they model themselves after and how they got involved in hockey, what other sports they play. So it's really for the fans, it's more in-depth coverage of the team they love.
Well, that's one thing I found. I interviewed 3 of the players and for this series this year, and each one of them, they enjoyed the experience, I think, of being able to talk about more than just one game, one period of play, and things like that. So sort of dive deeper. In terms of the podcast, maybe give a sort of a synopsis of what we can expect maybe each week in a typical episode.
Well, I can start off on that. I guess the big thing is the headline will probably be where we are, what we're going to talk about that night, but we'll do a little let you know where we are and how fans can get involved, showing up, listening to the podcast, but also watching and asking questions. Go to AJ with their questions, and AJ, and if we're not talking about an issue, AJ can move forward with that. And then, of course, we'll do how did the team do the week before? What's this week's schedule like? And then, we'll hear from the coaches. Most shows we'll have a player as a guest, and we'll learn about that player. And then we'll delve into community. Are there any school visits? Those types of things. So I think it's that kind of, mixed bag of items the team's involved with.
I think, yeah, Bob, you put it really well there. It is a mixed bag because we are going to do segments that are going to be very hockey on ice focused. I mean, we will, kind of recap the past couple of games. Bob will also be not only talking to North Bay coaches, but we're setting up interviews with opposition coaches as well. Getting a feel for, okay, you guys are coming into North Bay this week. What's how do you plan to attack them, and what do you know about them, kind of thing. And again, we'll break down what worked for the battalion that week, and then, like Bob said, getting to a lot of the fun stuff surrounding the team as well, a lot of the off ice stuff. And so, yeah, within the half hour to 45 minutes that we are on the air, it's going to be a lot of content. I know when we put our show rundowns together, there's just so much every week to talk about with this team, which is always a lot of fun. And sometimes we're going, how are we going to get all of this in there within that time frame? But so far we've managed. So fingers crossed that we can keep doing that.
Well, it's pretty good that we've managed so far, Matt, because we've really only had a handful of regular season games under our belt. And so while we're trying to get this podcast going, we're talking about preseason, about camp, about the fan fest, and there's not a lot of X's and O's involved with that, and there were like 100 players at camp, and hard to know who to talk about. But now, as we get into the regular season, we've got I guess we got games against Sudbury under our belt, a lot to talk about there, and then games against Ottawa, Kingston, and so it's really starting, and the weather's cooling down, and it's starting to get into hockey mode, even though Matt's wearing a Toronto Blue Jays sweatshirt. It's okay. You can wear a Toronto Blue Jays sweatshirt. But no, I think that the half hour that we scheduled, it's going to be hard to get it all in there because we like to talk about. I like to talk about the face-offs and the power play and the penalty kill, the three phases of the game, right? Offense, defense, and special teams. I love to talk about goaltenders. I love to talk about their pads and their helmet, their new art, and all that stuff. And I feel like I need half an hour just by myself to talk about the things that I want to talk about. But I've got to learn from these radio veterans how to restrain myself and just take my 1/3 of the half hour and use it as profitably as possible.
Summarize, right?
Yes. But
All right, look.
Hockey talkers don't summarize. They just want to go on.
Yeah.
They can go on for 4.5 hours talking about the way that Iggy Potsy tapes the tip of his stick, but not the rest of the blade, and those important details like that.
For sure.
And I think that's what's neat about the show too, is the three of us have kind of we've all been leading men within our respective industries, right? I had the country show. Bob was a news anchor for a long time. Ranjan is the play-by-play guy on your TV. So I mean, the fact that they can get the three of us to corral something in half an hour, I think is a pretty true testament to how well oiled this machine already is.
I guess, well, let's head on the ice and what were you impressed with from training camp and the preseason and the first few regular season games?
Well, what I was impressed with from the first regular season home game is the speed of the team. I think we didn't see everybody. It was some guys were in, some guys were out because you got to remember the season started a week earlier this year. So they didn't have that usual break between the end of the preseason and the start of the regular season. They had played at the Fan Fest Day against Owen Sound, and then just 5 days later, they opened the regular season at home against Oshawa. And they were missing several key pieces for that opener. 5 guys were away at camps, and the only one who was in the lineup was Mike McIver. And Ethan Procession's going to be back, but I'm still waiting word on the other guys. But I think that didn't hurt them, I think, in the first week. The speed of the team, the talent level of this team, I think, is really going to be going to jump out once the season, once they get used to the pace of the year, and a great first week, of course. And yeah, I think the speed of the team is really, and the youth of the team too, just one overage player.
I really like the depth that they have. Um, there is going to be a lot of internal competition for minutes this year, and they are all coming out of the gate trying to prove that they deserve those minutes. I mean, you've got guys that are, trying to get to the NHL this year in terms of trying to get drafted. You have a handful of those guys. You have a handful of guys that already were drafted and are trying to prove that, they deserve to be drafted players. Then you have those older guys that are, just looking to cement really their legacy with the North Bay Battalion. And I think that this is a team that's going to attack other teams in waves. There's not going to be a shift you can take off against this team because of that depth. And it's not just with the forward lines in terms of, they added two extra import players this year, and both Dubrovtsev and Pronin have looked good so far. It's also on the back end in picking up a guy like Harper. As a free agent, he's committed to Michigan, so he's playing here in the OHL. And he was a guy that wasn't on the radar at all last year, and all of a sudden becomes a top defensive pairing this year. So I really have liked the depth of this team in the early going.
One of the things that I'm most impressed at is the pack mentality of this team, and it was really evident in that road win against Sudbury. And Friday night in Sudbury is not a friendly place to go to, and they're so fast. There's so much skill on this team, and there are no guys wearing snowshoes plodding their way through the neutral zone. They got rockets attached to their skates, and it's breathtaking to see. And on the back check as well, really strong on the back check, and Wellenreiter is all over the ice, playing the right way, being on the right side of the puck, and it's contagious. Now, as a lifelong Toronto Maple Leafs fan, Cowboys fan too, you wait for the bottom to fall out. And I remember when Matt Sundin had a wrist injury in the playoffs, and it seemed like it was going to be the end of the world, but the rest of the team played really well in his absence, really well. And then he came back, and then they went for a bit of a dump. And so I'm just a little bit worried that when Procession comes back and Amidovsky comes back, Shamar Moses comes back, Bronson Ride, they're gonna come back, and then the rest of the team is gonna say, oh well, the big guys are back, so let me just sort of recede into my natural role because those guys are here. And sometimes there can be a bit of a letdown. You think it should be the opposite, but it has to be dealt with in practice so that they're ready to play and not wait for those four guys to lead the way. Because like Matt said, we have a lot of depth on this team, and you have leaders in every line, whether it's Posey, Parker Vaughn is emerging as a big leader. Ryder Carey is emerging as a big leader. Nolan Laird, of course. So, but you got to find room to shoehorn four bona fide, terrific OHLers that are coming back. Just hoping there's not a letdown as they try to make room for those guys mentally. Not physically, just mentally thinking that the big boys are back. Let me just get back into my swim lane and let them do what they have to do. Whereas the success of the team is rolling four lines and just that feverish, intense pack of wild dogs mentality that we've seen so far this season.
I know we talked earlier about directors and producers timing episodes. I just got the 10-minute warning on this episode, so I'll move along if that's all right. I guess, what are some of the strengths that you noticed with the team, and how did the experience of that push into the playoffs last season and help out going into this season?
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's a really good point you make, Richard, in the fact that remember the first half of the year, Anthony Romani didn't play. Mr. Pazzi was injured. He missed a lot of playing time. And, at the break, we didn't know about whether this team was a playoff team. They could have easily just said, okay, let's play for a draft pick, a first pick or a second pick, and miss the playoffs. But they didn't do that. That experience they gained, I think, down the stretch, having to win games, and they didn't sneak in. They played really well down the stretch to win games. I think that bodes well for the guys that have returned this year. That they saw that that gave them a lot of confidence. And even in the playoff series, they lost. They lost it in 5 games, but they won their last game at home. They lost an overtime game at home, and I, if they somehow got it to game 6, who knows? I don't think the Bulldogs wanted to play another game against the Battalion in that series. So moving forward, I think those guys that went through that experience, they're going to be even stronger this year. I think that gave them a lot of confidence.
It absolutely does. I spoke to Jonathan Capogeritis and Adrian Manzo just before the season started, and they both touched on that. They neither guy was with the team at the beginning of the year. They were both acquired at the deadline. Manzo got in just over 20 games with the Battalion, and Capogeritis only played the 5 games in the regular season, but he got 3 of the games under his belt in the postseason as well. And, they both said that coming to a team that wasn't at the top of the standings, but pushing just to make the playoffs was almost better experience than going to a team that was just going to coast into the playoffs. And they both said that experience of fighting and trying to earn it has resonated with them and has stayed with them, and it's something that they're looking to carry over into this season.
Usually at the trade deadline, you make a good point, Matt. Usually at the trade deadline, the league is divided into buyers and sellers. And one would think that you're an eighth place team in the conference, that you're automatically going to be sellers. I think that for a long time, we knew that Romani and Van Steensel were going to join Dallin Wakely in Barrie. And I think in the dressing room, they knew that too. And so when it finally did happen at the deadline, you look to the guy beside you and say, okay, well, this is it. It's go time, because we knew this was coming and it happened. And so now we got to do it. So in an interesting way, Matt, you brought up those two names. We were kind of, or not we, Adam Dennis and John Winstanley were kind of buyers at the deadline too, because they bought John Capogeritis, Adrian Manzo. That's for the future, right? It wasn't not buyers in the sense that you're going to make a run in the playoffs, but you're packing your roster with 17 and 18-year-olds that are going to be 18 and 19-year-olds. And when you think of Parker Vaughan was just, developing in this league, and Shamar Moses just developing in this league. So everything's kind of coming to a point with this club, with this roster and its current composition. And Capogeritis and Mans are just a part of that. Yeah, it's really exciting that the way last year turned out, and they had confidence in that series against Brantford, and they came very close to pushing it beyond 5 games. It could have been a 6-game series easily if one game had gone our way. Really good stuff at the end of the season, and they seem to have carried that enthusiasm here early in the season as they get into some meaningful games.
I think I have time for 2 more questions. So I guess, is there a player to watch or someone that you maybe can really see elevating their game this season?
Well, for me, the player to watch, 2 players, Parker Vaughan and Cam Warren. I think that combination is going to be so. I mean, already we've seen, more than flashes from both of those guys. Those would be my guys. Parker Vaughan and Cam Warren playing together, the power play is just going to be very entertaining.
I am all about the Ryder Cali train this year. He's a guy that drafted in the first round by the Sioux last year, came over to the Battalion, got his rights in a trade. He played in 5 games with North Bay last year, and wasn't able to record a point, and there was a lot of pressure on. Why maybe was he a first round draft pick? Is he gonna pan out? I think he's hit the ground running in North Bay in his second, well, really his first full season here in the OHL, and I think he is going to be just as good as advertised, and people are gonna, they're gonna know why he was so highly touted and why he was deserving to be a first round pick, and I think he landed in the perfect spot for him to develop here in North Bay, and I cannot wait to see the points and just how much of this team will run through him this year.
I think you're absolutely right about that, Matt. Just thinking back to the game in Sudbury, just a quick X's and O's because I know we're short on time. We had 11 forwards, and so you cycle your wingers onto the fourth line, and Ryder Cali comes over the boards. He's going to join the fourth line for a minute, and he recognizes that the other team's fourth line is out there already, and he goes end to end around everyone, takes a shot off the end boards, gets his own deflection off the end boards, and slaps it into the net. And you can probably check the highlight reel for that goal.
And he was blocked by 2 defenders on that play too, and still got to the puck.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is a hockey IQ moment of this guy thinking, okay, there's fourth liners out here. I can make hay right now. But since you've taken 3 names off the board, I'm going to have to think about a guy like Arseny Pronin, because he has shown me, first of all, really hard for the import players to get up to speed on the Canadian culture, the language and all that stuff. But on the ice, he has shown me a little bit of a nasty streak, a bit of you're not going to push me around. Of course, we saw him in the preseason tangling with Jacob Therrien, not because he wanted to, but he did answer the bell in a way. But as the season has developed, he is throwing hits. He's retaliating in ways where he doesn't get a penalty. So he does have an edge to him, and I'm looking forward to seeing that edge come out.
All right, really quickly, we got about a minute left to hear. If somebody wants to take the mic and just give us a plug on the podcast, where can people find it, and just let us know.
Yeah, people can find the podcast on the North Bay Battalion YouTube channel under the podcast tab. If you subscribe to the North Bay Battalion YouTube channel, you will get a notification every time we go live. You can email us at troopstrio@battalionhockey.com. Send us your questions, send us your comments, or check us out on the Battalion social media pages. We also want to thank SI Ticketing and Happy Dad Beverages for being our title sponsors this year for the show. Without them, this show wouldn't exist, as well as the City of North Bay, the Clubhouse at Gateway Golf, the Fox and Fiddle, the Boat North Bay, and the Moose. So again, you can find us on all those social media pages, and we will be doing live episodes from those venues.
And awesome. A shout out to Mr. Scott Abbott, the owner of the battalion, as well as Steve Batanti, Adam Dennis. They sort of gave us the go ahead to do this, and we're really excited.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Troops Trio.